Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Today, I'm so happy because we have two of the most amazing members of Elton, Mariela Marin and Jose Alfredo Lea, best known as Fred. Today, we're going to talk about creating safe spaces and raising LGBTQIA plus migrant children. So, thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you enjoyed this session. By the way, my name is Hugo Perez Trejo, and I am the membership coordinator at Eldan. So I'm going to pass the microphone to our presenters, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Hugo. It's great to have this opportunity to talk to folks a little bit about supporting our LGBTQIA migrant youth and families and friends. Today Fred and I get to share this with you a little bit from a place of, really wanting to be in community because this is ongoing work that needs to be done. So we'll be sharing a little PowerPoint with you and just sort of walking us through what will feel more like a conversation. Even though you're not here, we imagine having the conversation with you directly, but also just to get our thoughts going and thinking about the ways that we want to be walking in the world these days to support youth. So we will try to give you as much information as possible. And I just want to share first, we're just gonna and going through the PowerPoints, um, we'll go a little bit into some material and also have some things that we want you to think about that you might not be able to, obviously talk with anyone about right in the moment, but do think about them as part of what we want to share. Um, so I just want to introduce myself very quickly. My name's Mariela Marin. I am a marriage and family therapist and professor of psychology in Santa Barbara, California, land that is occupied Chumash land. And then I'll just pass it over to Fred if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mariela. My name is Alfredo Olea, but everyone's called me Fred Olea. I'm from Mexico, but now I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm a therapist. I study psychology in Mexico. I'm an activist too. My topics where I'm working with all the time is sexual health and mental health, focus in the LGBTQ plus community. So that's why Mariela and we were invited to have this exposition. So we are really glad you to be here. And of course, we invite you to share this presentation with all people that you think it's interesting in these topics or whatever. So thank you, Marilla.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. Okay. So as we said, we want this to be an opportunity to continue to grow in what we know and what we need to do to take care of our youth. So to that end, I want to talk a little bit about some of what we'll be talking about. We when we think about LGBTQIA youth, we want to really recognize that sexuality in all its dimensions, whether we're talking about gender, sexual orientation, how we express ourselves, how we walk in the world. It's a process of development along the lifespan that happens. I mean, some would say starting at birth. I think it starts before birth, in the intergenerational things that we carry. But it's a process that is with us our entire lives. And so, a lot of folks don't like to necessarily talk about sexuality in relationship to children, but it's a very natural, normal part of who we are from the very beginning. And so the support of youth and children needs to start very early, in the infancy, childhood, adolescent stage, and then follows throughout our entire adult life. The curiosity that comes with that, the activity, the experimentation, the identification, and the living someone's authentic life is important to acknowledge at every stage. And I think in for us talking about this today, we especially want to keep encouraging folks to talk about and to think about sexuality and gender expression and identity at very, very early ages, even though society sometimes discourages us from doing that with young people, right? I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add on that, Dave.
So the thing here is we are always thinking about we need to, how do you say, like broke this myth about sexuality, because our entire life we are just discovering different things about our bodies or our minds, or everything is changing all the time. So we want to we want you to understand that everyone is changing, and it's really important that you talk with your family, especially your kids, especially, but not just your kids. I mean, your daughter, son. I mean, it could be someone in your neighborhood, someone like, like in the school, if you're a professor or something, like you can work with them, but it's like a little like a normalize this situation and say like, okay, because if you know about sexuality and you understand more about your sexuality, you have like this orientation, you can help to other people, and especially for LGBTQ plus community and youth. I mean, it's really important because now it's like all this information is on the social media or is on television or is everywhere. So sometimes they are really curious about these things, and they don't know how to ask to people, no, like parents or like some teachers or people around them. So that's why we are doing this. So other thing is like you don't have to think like I don't know LGBTQ community around me, because probably they are around you, but you don't know it. So that's the only thing that I wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such an important point. You know, with sexuality being part of who we are always, it might not be the most obvious issue, but as what I was saying, I mean, you may have children who are even just questioning internally, sitting right next to you that you don't know about. And anytime that we can have that positive um, attitude and openness to this issue and talking about it with youth, it's incredibly powerful for them to feel safe to do that. So really quickly, I also just want to say, just in terms of those life stage changes, especially as we think about our young people, um, when we think about kids from age 0 to 5, they are getting to know their own bodies and what that means in terms of the sexual sensations and their gender. Um, they do a lot of play, and that's very natural and normal. So we want to allow children to do that and never shame them. Um, and then also, sort of psychologically and emotionally, the important part is that they are absorbing the messages and the energy that they feel coming from us as adults. So being really mindful of what kind of language we're using and what things we're saying and what judgments we're making. And then ages 6 through 12, obviously there's a little bit more of the physical changes that are happening for youth, which really heightens an awareness. And so safety is huge, and making that a safe time for folks to come and talk to you about things. And then we start to look at 14, 16 and beyond, then when it also starts to really incorporate the other person, so the relationship aspect of this. And again, in our role in supporting young people, having a safe space to do that exploration is very, very powerful. It seems really simple, but it's very important to make it safe and accessible for youth to be able to talk to us. Yeah. All right. So, the what we want to do is to recognize that there's also a lot of tools out there to understand why it's important. And sometimes this comes from, talking to youth and hearing from youth that what they really need is safe and inclusive places. They need opportunities, um, sometimes physical spaces, people that they can talk to, um, that that are resources of information, and also even just a partner in trying to find out information or process something. So you can be that person's family, you can be that child's parent or guardian or aunt or uncle. It might be that you are just a trusted person in their faith community, or maybe you are that trusted person at the local gym where they, work out, or maybe you're just the, you know, person that smiled at them walking down the street and they happened to notice that you had a cool rainbow pin on, right? Or the trans flag. So recognizing that this is work that happens across the board with all of us, and it is about providing safe and inclusive spaces. And it doesn't have to be in the therapy room. It can be in our living rooms and it can be out at the grocery store. So this is very broad and very wide, when we're talking about the safe and inclusive places. Yeah.
Yeah, and that in that part, I think we want you to understand that you have skills already. You already have it. So this conversation is like how to recognize those skills and use it in your daily life, and how that creates safe spaces around you in everywhere where you are living, or you're doing your life, like Mariela said. Like, yeah, if in your job, and it doesn't matter if you're not a teacher or professor. It could be you could work in a restaurant, or you could work in everywhere, and probably there will be some young people or kids, and they can feel better, like when you show these skills and help to feel safe. So this conversation is focused about those skills that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, hopefully that makes everyone feel a little bit better, just recognizing. I love that you're saying that piece, that we already have these skills. Like, pat yourself on the back. You've got these skills. It's just about leaning into them and using them. So, yeah. So, and what we want to just also really highlight, in raising an awareness and responsibility, and encouraging us to be proactive about supporting LGBTQ youth. Some people will say sometimes, well, as Fred was saying, I don't know anybody who's LGBTQ, or I, there's no one in my life. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? Our responsibility as community is to support anyone and everyone and the possibility that there is someone. So continuing to do that is key for why we're here. Okay. So as we move on, I do just want to, I know we did a brief introduction of ourselves, but I want us to just have an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about ourselves, because this is also an opportunity to practice and sort of recognize what are the assumptions we make about each other, what are the things that we are curious about each other, and that we don't always have the opportunity to share. So on the slide, where we're introducing ourselves, I realized in writing a lot of these things down for myself, these are the types of things that I want people that I'm in relationship to know. But as a society, we don't always take the time to be curious about it. And when we understand who people are and where they're coming from, it's easier for us to be able to connect, find the places where we can work together, and find the places where we need to learn more. Um, and I think, for me, and I would imagine for Fred as well, this is not about I'm some sort of expert on anything. The only thing I'm an expert on is being myself and hopefully then trying to connect with another person. So when I get the opportunity to get to know folks and I do feel safe, I think it's important for people to know I identify as a first generation individual. My parents are immigrants. I identify as gay, and I use the language gay because I just like that word better than I like the word lesbian. And it also just fits a little better with my gender expression and identity, which is of non-binary. Um, and I am in a relationship. I am a mom, and I actually call myself, or I call myself, my son calls me mama, because even though I'm non-binary, that word, that language has meaning for me. And that's how I experience that role. I identify as a spiritual person, and I name that because I think that encompasses a lot of different things for me. And it's an area that when I do feel safe with people, I do like to explore. And I do identify as a therapist. It's a big part of my life and how I feel like I can make connection and a difference in the world. And so it's from those identities that I'm speaking to you today. So Fred, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, that'd be great.
Thank you. Yeah, like I say, like my name is Jose Alfredo Lea, but everyone's call me Fred, and I prefer Fred or Freddy. And this will be something really important to say because normally we find a name like we or nickname that we really like to be called. So I'm Fred, and I'm the first generation too. I'm the first in my whole family to move or yeah to the United States or another country, and I identify like a bisexual or pansexual. It's like I always say, like for me everyone is really beautiful person, so it doesn't matter is that male or female or non-binary. For me it's like I need to know that person and probably I like that person. And about my identity, I always say like it's questioning because I'm always thinking like what does male mean or female mean or non-binary mean? And I'm always like thinking like identify like this, but some parts is not matching in my life, or some parts I like or not much. And like I say, it's always changing. So I'm always like questioning about my identity. And I'm single. I'm dating some people, but I'm single so far. I don't have kids, but I would like to have kids. I always say like I'm my own kid because I'm always trying to learn about my life, about myself. But sometime I will have a kid, I hope. I'm spiritual too, so I believe in a lot of stuff. Sometimes I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like some energy inside me and about the universe and the community. That's the closest thing to say probably. And I identify like a counselor too. I'm a therapist, but for my job or my activism, I'm always like counseling different people in different areas. So that's why I identify like a counselor. Um, I mean, I think like a counselor is when you understand what kind of things happened in your life, and after that you can share some knowledge to other people to understand their lives, just like an example about your life. I don't know how to say that, but I think that's a big part of the community life because we are always sharing knowledge each other. So that's something about me.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and I think it's important to highlight we came to work on this together, this presentation, being asked by Hugo to do this. And it's what's really cool is we do bring these different perspectives, so as Fred was saying, not having children yet, I do have a child, but we also come from our very own personal experiences. So it's not about whether you have a child or not. We have all been children. We have all gone through a process of uh, development of our sexual orientation, even if you're straight, um, uh, gender identity and expression. And so to bring all these pieces together really just highlights there's no one who doesn't deserve a place in this conversation. We've all been youth. We all know youth, some of us in different types of relationships, but that's why it really is a full community conversation to be having around all of this. So excellent. Okay. So what we wanted to do, and this is just the part where, ideally we would be having a long conversation with a little cafecito and some pan, but, Zoom doesn't quite have that feature yet where you can send those virtually. Um, but ultimately, this might be conversations for you to also take to your communities, to explore with people in your life, and to have an exchange of thoughtful exchange of what these questions are actually asking us. So when we think about what youth need, it when we stop and actually think about it, it's not that complicated. We can actually simplify things. They need a safe and inclusive space. So one thing that we want folks to be asking themselves is, what is a safe and inclusive space? What actions make me feel comfortable when I'm in an unfamiliar or a new place? And what is it that makes me feel comfortable when I am in a familiar place? And then the last one is, how do I feel when I'm called by the name I like most? And these three questions, when you stop and think about them, and I'll share a little bit of what those answers are for me, and then Fred can share a little bit about what it is for him as well. Because oftentimes what we recognize is when we can put ourselves in that place and understand what it is we would want, that's often not very different from what somebody else would want to feel safe. And so for me, a safe and inclusive place is really anywhere where I can trust that the other person, even though if they don't understand me, um, or don't know my experience, they are open to learning and they are respectful of my truth without trying to impose their truth. So, really, it's a place where folks are um, looking to me for my perspective. And it's also a place where I know very practically that I'm physically safe, that I don't have to worry about my safety. And I know that it's physically safe usually by the way that I'm greeted by somebody, usually by the whatever is around the room that I can tell maybe has a message of diversity and inclusivity. Maybe it's the way that folks ask me questions about my partner. Instead of making an assumption based on some of my physical attributes, instead of saying, "Are you married?" just even saying, "Are you in a relationship?" Something that simple tells me that there's an openness. Or if someone asks me, tell me about your significant other, then I know that they're not making an assumption about who I am or what they think I should be. I'm typically much more comfortable when folks are, engaging in conversation rather than just kind of taking a step back from me. So it's the small things that really lead to connection that make me feel comfortable. Um, and I definitely would think that one of those is very important, especially when we're talking about gender identity, is to make sure that we are asking folks how they actually identify and what language they use, whether it be pronouns or whether they have a different name from what may be assumed, or a nickname. So it's those small ways in which we look to the individual for their truth and then go from there. So that's one of the things that sticks out for me. How about for you?
Yeah. Yeah, in my case, I was thinking about some little things, or like I feel safe when, for example, when I'm in a place that I don't know, I haven't been before, and I'm like a little shy, especially. I mean, like I moved to the United States almost 2 years ago, and for me it was a little weird because I was like, I don't know if I can understand them. I don't know if they could say hello or they smile. But even those stuff make me feel comfortable. Like when I go into a place or a room or a classroom, whatever, and they say hello, or they just smile, or they have they have that kind of attention. I feel like okay, I can breathe now. Like, and the other day I was thinking about, I went to a museum and they have the LGBTQ flag, and I was feeling like I feel comfortable. I was with one of the guys that I'm dating with, and I was like, okay, we can hold our hands and it will be safe for us. There are some families, but they don't look like sterile, like they are some weird. It all those happen in my mind in that moment. So for me, a safe space is like where I feel safe, like my body like is like I don't feel like I'm shaking or worried about how to act, because sometimes I'm feeling like, oh, I don't know if I should sit here or just move to another place, or if I should start a conversation or something like that. So that kind of things for me is to create a safe space. And the other thing is, like I say, when I introduce myself and I say, my name is Alfredo, but everyone's call me Fred, and I prefer Fred. And people say like, okay, Fred, or they call me Freddy. I feel better because they understand the way that I like to be named. So we choose these examples because, for example, when you think in trans people, you just, and you don't know how to name them, just ask their name. Just say like, hello, my name is Fred. What about you? And they say like, or you can say, and I use this pronouns. My pronouns are they, them, he, him, or she, her. Like, I don't know. And it's a really kind way to ask or introduce yourself and understand the other people. So we thought about, when we were creating this presentation, Mariela and I thought about our childhood. We were thinking about, I remember when I was a kid that happened, and I remember nowadays it's happening in this way. And for us, this is like a kind of a life experience, but we are sure that everyone in the LGBT community feels safe with the same things, or kind of, but not just the LGBT community. It's around the world, all the people around everywhere. For example, if you use a wheelchair and you go into a safe space, you see probably, how do you say this in Spanish? Is rampas? Ramps?
Ramp, you got it. Yep.
Okay, ramps. Probably that person will think about, oh, I can move here. So is one of that way to create a safe space. And when someone probably that is blind or something, and they have some things that orientation, or people try to help them if they feel like they are a little lost, or they have this accessibility things, is the way to create a safe space. The same with if you're a woman, or the safe. if you're a kid, or the same if you have another, or I mean, there are different ways to create safe space. So the first thing is like think about where I feel safe and why. And when you understand that, you can think like, okay, probably the other person that is in front of me and is a little shy, and you can realize about how they feel, because you can it's really simple to see when someone is comfortable or not, and you can think like, okay, I can go and ask what can I do for them. So that's the way that we want you to think about safe spaces. It's everywhere with simple things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and I would even encourage folks after thinking about these questions for yourself. I think one of the other pieces, especially with young people, I think with little kids, we feel a little bit more comfortable asking them questions, but with teens, ask them these questions directly. Hey, what would make you feel safe here? You know, what makes you feel comfortable? What do I do that doesn't make you feel comfortable? They may not have the answer right then for you, but even just your having asked them is already a message to them that you care enough to change your behaviors or to do something different. I know if a teacher would have asked me in high school, what would make you more comfortable? It would have blown my mind to think that an adult actually cared, and would ask me the question. So just engage them. So if you don't know, it's also okay. Just ask the question. Yeah, I love that piece that Fredo's saying. You know, just ask folks what are your name? What is your name? What pronouns do you prefer? What pronouns do you use? What do you need? Kids know what they need. They just haven't always been invited to answer it, right? We make assumptions for them. So, all right. And you know, this next piece is just sort of a continuation of this, and a recognition, as Fredo was saying earlier, too, of the things that you already may be doing. And I think we like to highlight this because if you're already doing it, keep doing it, right? There's no end to this. It's not once I've done it, I don't have to do it again. It's an ongoing thing for folks. And when we can recognize it and then, you know, also note, oh, this is working, we can keep building off of that. So thinking about the things that you already do to create spaces, safe spaces, inclusive spaces for children and youth who are LGBTQ identified, um, and recognizing again, and we just want to always keep highlighting that it's not necessarily just people who you have a close connection to. This is something we need for anyone that we're coming into contact with. So, excuse me, I've lost my voice. Um, so for me, what I just want to say here really quickly, you know, it is that piece of in the moment awareness of the way that I'm using language, making, um, I would say, routine reviews of the spaces that I'm in, whether it's in my classroom or whether it's in my therapy room, or even if it's in like the books that I'm using or the articles that I share with people. Who are the authors? What messages am I sending by what I put out there? Um, those are definitely things. And like I said just a second ago, being very, very intentional and explicit about asking folks what they need and how they're feeling in the moment. Um, but I also, you know, it's some of the other things too that I sometimes need to correct and make sure of. You know, what I think might be funny with someone that is close to me if I'm out in public, there are people around me who are hearing things that I may not know, um, in terms of what feels comfortable to them. So being really mindful of myself and community. I share the space, I share this planet with everybody and every other living thing. And so I have to be intentional and thoughtful and not just assume that I get to take up space wherever I go, and not think that it might affect people. So I'm really trying to be much more aware too of even the things that I laugh at the movies, the things that I say in my language. So it can be from the very small to the very big. On a bigger level too, what messaging we put out on our social media. Our youth can see those kinds of things, right? Whether it's someone in our family or our friends, or even if it's someone who just happens to scroll through your very popular post. What messages am I putting out? What images am I putting out? What message is being absorbed by that other person? So it is across the board. Is there anything you wanted to share there, Pat?
Yeah, just I wanted to say that you can help a lot of people at the same time. If you like the public transportation, say if you see something, say something, right? Because if you are working and see that someone is bullying to someone else about LGBT things or about disability things, about the, I don't know, whatever, if you say something, probably you don't have to stop in that moment, that situation, but you can go after with that victim and say like, do you need something, or can I do something for you? Because probably you don't know how to react in that moment, but after that, you can do something too. So that's one of that ways to show that you are interested in, but but they are not alone. So because something that happened when you moved from your own country or your country to another country, you feel a little alone, and especially when you're a kid, or you're a young people like a adolescent, or yeah, you feel like okay, nobody cares about me, or okay, I feel alone because my parents are working all the time, or there are a lot of situations. But if you show that interest in that person, they will be really glad. And I'm really sure that you can do a lot of stuff like just smile or say hello or try to be kind, even if you're not, you don't have to be a LGBTQ plus guy or lesbian or whatever to show like a LGBTQ flag. And probably if you try to be in that situation but present, like I need to I need you to feel like you're not alone, they later will they are going to go with you to ask for help, or to say thank you, or to encourage other people to ask or to be with you, and you don't have to have the all the answers for everything, because you're learning too. And this is a process that we are living or in our lives. Even Mariela and I, we still learning about the LGBTQ things, but not with just with this, about migration, about disabilities, about mental health. So try to think that you can do a lot of stuff, and probably you are doing right now. So just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and at the end of the day, I think across the board, what is most important is exactly what Fred just said. For us to keep learning, always stay open to learning more, not assuming you know it all. And the thing about LGBTQ issues and what's affecting youth today, with the resources that we do have with internet, with community, it really isn't hard to reach out to the places that are in our communities or online to find information. So we can't pretend anymore. Oh, I didn't know, or I didn't know where to find it. It's about having the energy to go and do it because you care, And because it's, as you were saying, Fred, like we can always change, we can always do better. We can, if we made a mistake, we can change that. We're always learning to do that next better thing. Um, and in fact, ultimately, and just on the PowerPoint as well, what you'll find, on the next slide is some resources. And this is just a sampling. It's a very short sampling of some resources that can you can access just by Googling LGBTQ youth, right? Latinx LGBTQ youth. And you can find a number of different things to learn from and to start your journey of understanding, to start your journey of collecting resources. And then when you have those resources, sharing them with young folks so that they are empowered to use them as well. Because there is stuff out there that can be really, really helpful if we just know where to look and we're not afraid to support others in finding that information. And one of the things that, at least for me, and I'll speak from my personal experience, um, coming out a while ago, as you can see, the gray hair is very pronounced. So it's been a minute since I've been out in the world. Um, but coming out, the hardest part was trying to do it by myself, was feeling like nobody wanted to know about my process, or I wasn't safe to talk about it. Had that safety been there, had there been more people talking about it and more energy, I could have saved myself a lot of time and a lot of heartache. And so if we model that for our youth, that's one less thing that they are having to figure out for themselves. I think most of us would probably say we have a lot more fun when we are doing things with another person than when we're by ourselves. So, I think it's about showing up is the biggest thing. Yeah. Right. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to add there, Brad?
No, just thank you, Mariela, and don't forget to share this information with a lot of people. It will be in the Latino Therapist Action Network platform, I think the YouTube channel. So you can check every time that you think that you need, and you can just share with all people that you think that this could help. That I'm sure that if you share to someone, that will help them. So just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's that ripple effect, but as it just keeps going. All you have to do is share once and then it starts rolling. I mean, in fact, the holidays are coming, so if you need something to talk about at the table, just pull out the PowerPoint and start talking to folks about it. Excellent. So yeah, just a reminder, folks, you're doing it. You've got the tools. It's about being present, it's about being open, and it's about, letting that care and compassion and that empathy and curiosity flow. And then things will happen. I promise. So thank you for spending some time with us and for chatting about this and thinking about this now and in the future.
Thank you so much, Mariela and Fred. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm craving now this pancito and cafecito because I feel like we could keep talking hours and hours and hours and hours. It's kind of endless. So to talk to you, and I'm really grateful to have had the chance to talk to you today. And that you guiding us through this very important topic. And I'm sure that the community will be grateful for this presentation, and thank you so much for everybody who is watching this video. And as Fred mentioned before, please share this video with your colleagues or people who might be interested in these topics, and with everybody, like as I said before, this is a really important topic that must be talked by everyone because it's something that we could just um, practice every day. It's not only about, I mean, I think that being kind, being a good person is welcome all the time, to act like that. So if you have questions and want to know more about more information about the work we do, about this presentation, visit our website, elton.org, that you will see down here on your screen, and visit our Instagram page at Latinx Therapist Action Network, or send us a message to info@elton.org. Again, thank you, Mariela. Thank you, Fred. I hope to see each other very soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.